Hello, my loves, and welcome to another episode of Mercy of the Realms. For those who haven't seen this series, it's basically my book series. I'm doing like little episodes here and there, which I've been slacking on, honestly. But I want this year to really focus on recording more book related videos and book content for you guys so that way you guys can see the books I'm currently reading and my thoughts on them. So for this month of March, I started off reading this book by Connilyn Cossette. It is Voice of the Ancient. It is a biblical fiction book, which is like the first biblical fiction book that I have read. And I gave it a 5 stars because it was amazing. I'm not really a fast reader. I take my time when it comes to reading, to be honest. And I'm not like rushing to try to get through them. My goal usually is one book a month. But this book, I finished it in a week, which is pretty fast for me. I know people can read a book in a day, and I wish I could be that fast reader, but I am not. But I read it in a week, which I think is the fastest I've read a 300-page book. Obviously, it's like 100 page, I can read it in a day. But when it's like 300 pages, it takes me a while. And the book itself, like the letters, are pretty small, I feel like, compared to some other books that I have. But guys, I love this book so much. The storyline was amazing, and it literally like pulled you in that you want to know what happens next. That's literally what happened to me. Like, even when I was going to bed every night, I was like, what's gonna happen? I want to know what's gonna happen to these characters. And literally I'd wake up the next day and the first thing I did would be like grab this book to read because I just wanted to find out what happens next. So I'm gonna give you guys, well, not give you guys, I'm gonna read to you guys the blurb so you guys can get an idea of what it's about. Don't mind if I pronounce anything wrong. But this is basically what the book is about. As the eldest son of a Levite and a Philistine, Abidan is torn between his duty to his family legacy and the desires for something more. After an enemy attack strikes close to home, he takes the opportunity to fight with his cousins for the newly crowned King Saul. But when one of the cousins goes missing during the battle, Abidan refuses to leave him behind. Cossette is the daughter of one of the most powerful clan chiefs in the territory of Manasseh. On the brink of a forced marriage to a loathsome man, decades older than her, she has no choice but to run, hoping to find sanctuary with her mother's family. United during their journeys and battling to survive the dangers that surround them, Abidan and Cossette make a pact to travel together. As challenges pile up, they must not only rely on each other to stay alive, but also to learn to trust the true and eternal King of Israel to guide their every step. So, as you guys can see, so basically the two characters in this story, because it is, I think, going to be 3-part book, 4, I'm not sure to be honest, but right now I have 2 of them, the first and the second book. Excuse me. So this one is going to be about Abidan and Cossette. So one thing I enjoyed about this book was that it made you think about the Levite tribe, which I mean is that I had never thought of this when I would read like the Bible, especially when it came to like the Levites. Like, I knew already that like God has separated them for priesthood and they wouldn't go into battle anytime there was war with the Philistines or like any of the other countries around them. But I never thought about like the young men, especially like teenagers that were like, oh my gosh, that I think they thought that war was like something amazing, like, oh my gosh, I want to fight for my king, I want to fight for my country. But as a Levite, you weren't allowed to because, like I said, God separated them specifically for priesthood. And I was like, wow, that is true. Maybe how many young boys and, like teenagers wanted to go fight, but they couldn't because they were born into the Levite tribe. And that is something that I didn't think about until I read this book. And it basically talks about, like I said, Abidan, he wants to fight with his cousins because his cousins are not part of the Levite tribe. And he sees that they're like excited, they're practicing, they're training, to fight for war and for their country. And he's like, I'm being left out, basically. They're gonna go out there, they're gonna have all these amazing stories to tell, and I'm gonna just be stuck here, like singing and doing sacrifices for God. And even though obviously like that is such a big what's it called, like a good and very like oh my gosh, what's the word I'm trying to say? Basically, what God has separated the Levites for is, you know, like something that you have to appreciate, because obviously like they're literally the closest ones that are doing all like the sacrifices, which not anyone can do, you know, like the priesthood, the priests, they're the ones that are in charge of that, and that is like a big honor. That's the word I was looking for, honor. But he, as a teenager, he's in his mind, it's like, I don't want to be doing this, you know, like I want to go out to war. But then throughout this journey, God obviously like, he sees like why it's important, the job that God has set, you know, like his family and his tribe for. And then he realizes that he wasn't meant to fight wars, you know. And then for Keziah, she was basically born with just her dad, and he basically raised her and arranged this marriage for her, like I said, it's like with an older man. And she finds out something about him, and that's why she decides to run away. She's like, I'm not gonna marry this man. And then she meets up with Avidan, and that's how their journey begins together. But honestly, the storyline is just so beautifully written, and I love how she uses a lot of like the Hebrew words, like for the names. Like I think, for example, Joshua, she uses Joshua. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it, so forgive me for that. But like she uses like the names for like the for Moses, Joshua, the tribes, the like mom and dad, Ima, and she uses words which makes you obviously know that it's a Hebrew story, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm sorry if a lot of things I said might not make sense, but if you haven't read it, definitely read it. And like I said, I'm currently reading the second part to this story, which is one of the other cousins' storyline. And so far, I'm also enjoying it. So I cannot wait to see what happens to his other cousin. So basically, it continues from this book. It's like the continuation of this storyline, basically, but through his cousin's side. So after like the war and everything, then we are now reading the part of his cousin. So if you guys have read this book, let me know. Also recommend me any other Christian related books. I think I'm gonna be recording later on all the Christian or faith-based books that I do own and that I have read, just to give you guys like my thoughts on them and like a little review. And if you guys have any other ones you guys have read or also want to read, let me know down in the comments, because I would like to start adding more faith-based books to my collection. I do have a few, a good amount I feel like, but I do want to add more. But yeah guys, that is going to be it for this week's vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and hope I didn't ramble too much. And I will see you guys on the next one. Adios.